Hello and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to just do a brief introduction to the constellations, or Rashis as they're called in Sanskrit, as according to Vedic Astrology or Jyotish. So let's get into it. So what we have here is a table, and this is probably the most basic information about the constellations or Rashis, as they're called in Sanskrit. So this is the order number. So there's an order. There's a first constellation, first Rashi, second. There are 12 of them in total, as you can see. And so whenever you see a birth chart, for example, and a 1 is written, and they're indicating a Rashi, that would be Aries. If you see a 3 and that's indicating a Rashi, that would be Gemini. Okay, so it's important to know the order and know which number corresponds with which Rashi or constellation. And again, since this is Vedic astrology, there's a lot of Sanskrit. So I typically go back and forth between the English name and the Sanskrit name. So if you're watching my videos or other videos on Vedic astrology, depending on the person, they might use one or the other. So if you know both, it won't matter to you. You can watch a bunch of different videos. We also have the ruling planets here, and we have the symbols. So I would consider this the most basic information about constellations. So let's just go through. So the first number, constellation, and I'm saying constellations here, I'm not saying signs, because they're actually two different things. I know in Western astrology, in the Western world, the United States at least, sometimes people say, oh, what's your sign? But actually, signs and constellations are different. So constellations are actually formations of certain stars that you can see in the sky. They're fixed. So that's actually why sometimes Vedic astrology is called fixed star astrology, because those stars aren't moving, or at least they're not moving fast enough to make much of a difference in Jyotish or Vedic astrology. Signs, on the other hand, are actually more theoretical. Not to get too deep into it, but there's the zodiac, which is a band of 12 constellations, and these are the constellations. But the thing is, the zodiac doesn't exactly meet up, doesn't match exactly the annual path of the sun. So every year, so about 2,000 years ago, they lined up. Okay, so the zodiac, this sort of parade of 12 constellations, match with the annual rotation of the sun, which is called ecliptic. So the zodiac matched the ecliptic about 2,000 years ago. But every year, the solar calendar, it actually slips. So there's a less than a degree difference between the ecliptic and the zodiac. But the thing is that over time, over millennia, many, many years, that difference is growing. And so that's why you actually have right now about a 23.5 degree difference between Vedic constellations and Western astrology signs. Okay, so that's why you can say, like, I just did a video on North, South, and East Indian style charts where I looked at Joe Biden, the U.S. president's chart, in the different formats. And the last thing I covered was the difference between a Western style chart and the Northern or any of the Indian style charts, and that you actually have to do a calculation difference. So anyway, that was more than I expected to go into, but I guess somebody needed to hear that. So there is a difference between constellations and signs, so just know that, even if you don't know the technical reason for it. So again, the first constellation here is number 1. It's Aries. The Sanskrit name is Misha. The ruling planet is Mars, and I have in parentheses here K2, which is the south node of the moon. I have not been trained to use K2 in the birth chart as a ruling planet, but I have used it as a ruling planet in what we call the sub-zodiacs or the micro-zodiacs or the amshas of a chart, which are different ways of analyzing the birth chart. So for the most part, most when people say what planet rules Aries, that's going to be Mars. But in certain circumstances, certain types of analysis, you can use Ketu. And also another Sanskrit word here is Graha. Graha means planet. Okay, so you might as well get used to some of this terminology. The symbol of Aries is a ram. So, like a ram that kind of butts things on its head, and that's kind of a little bit indicative of the energy for that constellation. The second constellation is Taurus. The Sanskrit name is Rishabha. The ruling planet or ruling Graha is Venus, and the symbol of this is the bull. So a big, sturdy animal. This is a fixed sign. So things in this constellation tend to be steady, strong, maybe even stubborn, perhaps. The third constellation is Gemini. The Sanskrit name is Mituna. The ruling planet or Graha is Mercury. And the symbol here is a man holding a club and a woman holding a music instrument. So in Western astrology, it's twins. In this case, it's specifically a man and a woman. So it actually is more indicative of a couple. And that's also important for analyzing Gemini. Either way, there's this idea, it's a dual sign. So there's this idea of like duality, like more than one aspect to it. Okay? The fourth constellation is Cancer. In Sanskrit, that's Karka. The ruling planet or Graha is the moon. The symbol of this is the crab. So it's an animal that lives in water. It's got kind of a hard outer shell and a soft inner being. And can move sort of sideways and that sort of thing. So, things related to Cancer tend to be, there can be a bit of a harder outer shell, and that's usually sort of the intellect that people might recognize. But things related to Cancer, because it's ruled by the moon, are very emotional. So there's that water element and that softer aspect of this constellation. The fifth constellation is Leo. The Sanskrit name is Simha. The ruling planet or Graha is the sun, and the symbol of this is the lion. So because this constellation is ruled by the sun, there's a lot of fire, and such is the lion. The sixth constellation is Virgo. The Sanskrit name is Kanya. The ruling planet is Mercury. So Mercury owns or rules two constellations. The symbol here is a maiden, a young woman, usually in a boat, that's holding wheat in one hand and fire in the other. So sort of nurturing, caretaking energy, which can usually a lot of times go along with Virgo. Sometimes a homebody as well. The seventh constellation is Libra. The Sanskrit name is Tula. The ruling planet or Graha is Venus. So Venus also owns two houses. The sun and the moon only own or rule one. So that's important to know about the sun and the moon. They only own or rule one constellation. The other thing is that if you look at the symbols I've written here for the Sanskrit names, I am not an expert in Sanskrit. This may not mean much, or it might be gibberish to people who are true students of Sanskrit. I apologize. I don't know it well enough to give you a good symbology, I guess, for the Sanskrit name, but hopefully it's phonetic. So at least you would be able to hear it or see it and understand what constellation we're talking about. In any case, Libra is Tula, ruled by Venus, and the symbol of this is a man holding scales. In Western astrology, this constellation, when they talk about scales, it's just scales. It's not a man holding scales. Scales in Western astrology tends to be more symbolic of the scales of justice. In Vedic astrology, this is more the scales of a marketplace, so actually measuring things. So it's a little more mundane, one could say. And typically, people who have a Libra rising sign, or Lagna, or ascendant, we would call it, they tend to be interested in business because, again, the scales, the symbol of the scales, a man holding the scales here, is more related to the marketplace than law. The eighth constellation is Scorpio. Sanskrit name is Vrishika. The ruling planet is Mars. So again, Mars owns or rules two planets. The symbol here is a scorpion. So there can be a sting. Also, scorpions tend to hide deep in caves and things like that. And there's tends to be this sort of mysterious, hidden quality of scorpionic things. The ninth constellation is Sagittarius. The Sanskrit name is Danu or Danus. The ruling planet or Graha is Jupiter. And the symbol here is a centaur holding a bow about to shoot. So that's half man, half horse. Again, some fiery energy here. The 10th constellation is Capricorn. The Sanskrit name is Makara. The ruling planet or Graha is Saturn. And the symbol here, it can be several things, but basically there's this, it can be like a crocodile with like I think the chest of a deer, or it can be like a fish / goat, some sort of like strange creature. Sometimes it actually, people talk about it almost like a dragon or some sort of mythical creature. I've seen it in different ways. It's, you gotta use your imagination a little bit to get at that one. The 11th constellation is Aquarius. The Sanskrit name is Kumbha. The ruling planet or Graha is Saturn again. And this constellation, in some circumstances, the Rahu is used as the owner or ruler of this constellation. I don't use it in the natal chart itself, but I do use it in subzodiac analysis or Amsha analysis, Amsha chart analysis. The symbol here is a man holding a pitcher on their shoulder and about to pour that out, potentially water or something like that. The 12th constellation, final constellation, is Pisces. The Sanskrit name is Meena. The ruling planet or Graha is Jupiter again. So again, Jupiter also has two signs that it rules or lords over. And the symbol here for Pisces is two fish swimming in opposite directions. So it is a water sign. There's a water element here. It can be emotional in nature. But the two fish swimming, it also indicates that there's some duality here. This is another dual sign. All right, so those are the basic things. If you're just starting out, beginning with astrology, some of this is very similar overlaps with Western astrology, but there are important differences as well. So there you have a very brief introduction to the constellations or Rashis in Vedic astrology. I hope this helps you. Again, if you're starting to learn or interested just to get more clear on different aspects of these things, so that, if you're even just listening to interpretations by astrologers, you'll get more out of it. All right, because hopefully what we're all trying to do is just help people navigate different times, phases, cycles in their life, so they can move through hopefully more smoothly. All right, so thank you for your time, and until the next one, namaste.